call the roll.
Trustee Brown,
Present.
trustee Platt,
Present. Present.
trustee Crossman,
Present.
trustee Figurs, trustee Gibbons,
Here.
trustee Harper,
Present.
trustee Lawson,
Present.
trustee Mondelez,
Present.
trustee Perry,
Hello.
Here.
trustee Reed.
Just say hello.
We see you. Trustee Stone,
Present.
trustee Washington,
Here.
trustee White,
Present.
trustee Figurs.
She's connecting, however, disconnected.
Okay, we see you.
Okay.
All right, you have a quorum.
Thank you so much, Attorney Barge-Miles. So our first order of business is to hear comments from the public. Please be mindful that each person recognized for the purpose of public comment shall limit his or her comments to agenda matters currently before the board. The speaker shall give their name and limit their remarks to 3 minutes. All remarks shall be addressed to the board as a body and not to any member thereof, nor to members of the audience. Attorney Barge-Miles, do we have anyone signed up for public comment?
No, we do not.
Okay, thank you so much. So we will move on to our first agenda item, which is the consideration of the performance-based funding, data integrity audit and certification. VP Malashevsky, you are recognized to present this agenda item.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chair White, Chair Harper, and President Robinson, as well as trustees. We were to move to performance-based funding about a decade ago. And ever since then, the Board of Governors has been keenly interested in ensuring that the data we submit to them is accurate for their decision-making purposes. And that each of the constituent universities is on a level playing field with regard to the submission of data and information regarding the metrics that they use.
Madam Chair. Madam
Yes, sir.
Chair, it's really hard to hear with the reverberation in that room. I don't know if there's something that we could do to hear that better, because I'm like getting a lot of feedback.
There's nothing in the room that's doing it. Is anyone else hearing it? Maybe it's a connection or something. Is anyone else hearing these noises?
I'm hearing a little bit of it.
Okay.
Yes, we hear you. We hear you.
I'm able to understand and hear.
So trustee Gibbons, I asked Mr. Mattis.
Okay.
Speak louder, and people that does pick up, wrestling, rustling the papers, moving up the seats, a laptop, so Mr. Jones, if you would lower the papers and everybody start checking on their computer, Bill Hudson, we cut down some of the background noise. Thank you.
Okay, so I'll try to be a bit louder. We're annually required to audit the performance-based funding metrics, and as part of that, the board chair and the president are required to agree to the scope of work for that audit, and after the audit, execute a certification document. This year, we focused our efforts on the metrics 5, 6, 8, and 10 for the period of time fall 2022, spring 2023, and summer 2023. The testing of the data metrics, we had but I don't see it showing, so I don't know if we're looking at it. It's all right, we don't need it. It's fine.
Yeah, because I'm not sure everybody knows what those numbers correspond to. In the names of the message. It would be helpful for them to see that.
Okay, we're gonna try to get the PowerPoint up while we're continuing. So metric 5 is the APR rate. Metrics 6 and 8 are the percentage of bachelor's and graduate degrees in programs of strategic emphasis. And metric 10 is the FAMU Board of Trustees choice metric, which is related to first-time in college students. So about every 3 years, we work our way through each of the performance-based metrics. And this year we focused on 5, 6, 8, and 10. Our audit testing found no material errors in the metrics that we tested and found that that was acceptable. We also, in the scope of our work, reviewed the processes used by the data administrator at FAMU to ensure that they were effective and efficient, that we've appointed a data administrator and that they're performing their work appropriately. And we found that that was all satisfactory. And finally, we looked at data submissions to determine whether the submissions were made on time, the data submitted was valid and appropriate for decision-making purposes. And again, we found that to be satisfactory. So this audit, for all intents and purposes, can be described as a clean audit for this cycle. And as a result, we recommend that Chair Harper and President Robinson use it as a basis to execute the Board of Governors' required certification document. That document contains 9 representations to the Board of Governors regarding appointment of a data administrator, having effective internal controls, quickly, that's it. Yes. So this slide overviews the information I just covered. And then if we could go to the next slide. And this relates to the data integrity certification. We concluded through our work that there are adequate controls and processes in place to meet the Florida Board of Governors requirements, that we found no material errors and the data files submitted were appropriate and can be used, so our audit work can be used as a basis for the president and board chair to complete this required certification. So that really concludes my presentation. Unless there are any questions, I'll be happy to answer them now.
Thank you, VP Malashevsky. I don't see anyone's hands raised. Okay, Trustee Lawson, you're
Yeah,
recognized.
Joe, how you doing, sir? Quick question. And previous slide, was that a need for an incremental person, or is that person already in the existing department? The data administrator?
Already in place, yes.
I'm sorry, so it's already within your current headcount?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. I don't see any additional hands. May I have a motion for approval, please?
So move.
Second.
It's been properly moved and seconded to approve the performance-based funding, data integrity audit and certification. Is there any unreadiness? Seeing none, all those in favor, please show by the sign of aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. The motion carries. Thank you so much, VP Malashevsky. Our next agenda item is the new 700-bed residence hall project. VP Brown will provide an update on our plans for this project. VP Brown, you're recognized. Is VP Brown in the room?
I am, I was waiting.
Okay,
Just waiting for the presentation to be pulled.
okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Chairwoman Harper and members of the board and President Robinson. In our last October 2023 committee meeting, we provided an update of the new 700-bed residence hall project. At that time, we shared as an informational item the ongoing efforts to secure a guaranteed maximum price GMP contract. The university has accepted the GMP of $74 million and is finalizing the contract with Finfrock Construction. This marks a significant step forward with the loan closing date now set for February 13th, 2024. Site work is scheduled to begin next month with a substantial completion of July 31st, 2025. This achievement could not have been possible without the unwavering support and collaborative effort of various partners and stakeholders. I would like to extend our heartfelt thanks to the U.S. Department of Education, Rice Financial, Brentwood Capital Partners, the Florida Board of Governors, Board Finance, and notably our university stakeholders and internal team whose dedication and hard work has been instrumental in reaching this point. Today, we are joined by members of our facilities team and general counsel who are here to provide further insights and address any operational or procedural questions. Attorney David Self will introduce outside counsel.
Thank you, Madam Vice President. The Office of the General Counsel, we engaged special construction counsel in the form of Ackerman Centerfit Law Firm, represented by their shareholder, Nyla Tatum, who helped us negotiate the previous contract with Finfrock Construction, and at that time, Construct 2 Development, and she was with a different firm. And she has also engaged counsel inside of her firm in the form of one Leslie Tomzak, who's a board certified construction attorney. If the board has any questions, we're still in the middle of negotiating the details of the guaranteed maximum price, but the guaranteed maximum price itself is $74 million for construction. And if the board has any other questions, I will either answer those or ask our special counsel to address them.
Thank you so much, VP Brown and Attorney Self. Are there any questions at this time? Trustee Lawson, I assume your hand was raised from the last one. Okay. All right.
Yeah, sorry, I just lowered it, sorry.
Okay, no problem. Thank you. This is not a action item, so seeing that there are no questions, looking around the room, okay.
Hey, Trustee Harper, I'm sorry.
Yes.
I do have one general question, and this may or may not be the right time to ask it. It's a beautiful building, right? And my question is the capacity of the existing cafeteria to support the additional occupancy in that location. And maybe that's something that we've already thought through, but just to throw that out, and if it's not able to be answered today, maybe we could just circle back in March with a quick answer.
I can respond to that. And so we have thought it through, Trustee Lawson. As a matter of fact, we are of the knowledge that we need to add additional seating to be able to accommodate the new 700 bed. And so there are some plans that are being, preliminary plans that are being constructed or designed. And the committee or the internal team will be meeting to decide on what that finalized plan will be, for an anticipated opening in the fall of 2025.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Lawson. Trustee Gibbons, you're recognized.
The only question I have is, what does the minority participation look like with this particular agreement with FINRA?
Well, at this point, I am not sure of the minority participation. Kendall, are you on the line? Kendall Johnson?
He is
Yes, ma'am.
unmuting.
I'm here. I'm sorry. I was trying to get off mute. Yeah, we're still working through the selection process as it relates to subs within the GMP. We'll be in a position to bring routine updates to the board as at the next meeting.
So we awarded a contract without having a guaranteed amount of minority participation in the contract already.
Can't you, Mr. Well, remember, I don't think we can do that, but I would refer to legal counsel.
Trustee Gibbons, this is David itself. The university is under a consent decree that was signed back in, I would say, 2004, in response to a lawsuit by Associated General Contractors, and in construction specifically, in that consent decree under the administration of then Governor Bush, the university is prohibited from requiring minority participation in specific amounts.
Attorney Self, I never said we required them. I just asked what did the participation look like, so we can encourage folks to actually want to participate with minorities involved. So, okay, I'm good. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Brown, you're recognized.
Hello, thank you so much for the presentation. I just wanted to ask, with us having this facility, what percentage of our students does that mean that we're currently housing on campus now with this additional facility? And what is the goal that we're trying to get to with our percentage of campus housing for students?
Madam Chair, this is Dr. Hudson.
Please.
So presently, we have approximately 2,600 beds on campus, which is approximately 26% of our students that we're able to house on campus. With the addition of this extra 700, we'll move up slightly to about 30 to 31%. And our goal is to reach 35 to 40%.
That sounds great.
The master plan that has been developed for the next several years. And I think we presented it a couple of board meetings ago, that master plan, and you approved some of it to be done in phases.
If I might, Madam Chair.
Please.
Originally, we had 3 components to this housing request, but we were advised, and we took that advice to break it out into pieces, with the largest piece being the 700 bed, because it's pretty much ready to go. The template is already done. We do have 2 other projects Dr. Hudson alluded to that we want to take on, but we really want to get this behind us first. And then we'll, not that we'll wait for them to start planning, because we already have these others in the master plan to get the Dr. Hudson for.
Thank you so much, Dr. Hudson, Dr. Robinson, for that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Are there any additional questions related to this informational item? Okay, seeing none, thank you so much, Brown. Our next agenda item is the athletics budget update and an overview of the athletics budget. VP Sykes, you are recognized.
Thank you, Chair Harper. I'm just pausing to see if we get the slideshow up.
Madam Chair, I had a question about one of the documents, if it's okay, or if I should wait until later.
One of the documents related to the athletics budget?
Yes, I was just trying to clarify what the difference of the last item that was sent today was compared to the other items, just so that I was making sure I could differentiate the two.
It was presented in Excel. That was requested by Trustee White, and he said it was easier to work with that, so I sent it to the full board.
Yes, ma'am. Okay, thank you so much,
Same
Attorney Bargemont.
Same exact information, different formats.
Thank you.
Okay, VP AD Sykes, you are recognized.
Okay, I am waiting for the slides, or I can just get started.
Yeah, you can use the latest thing.
The slides are posted to this website. Well, I think all of the board members have the document, so I'll go ahead and get started. But again, thank you, Chair Harper. Good afternoon to you, members of the FAMU Board of Trustees, and President Robinson. Thank you for having me. And in preparation for today's meeting, specifically the athletics budget update, everyone received a copy of our athletics budget analysis for their review. As presented on the first slide, we've collected 55% of our projected revenue for the current fiscal year. We have exceeded projections in a number of categories, including football gate receipts, season tickets, concessions, and parking. In fact, since this report was compiled on January 21st, we have received additional revenues and royalties and anticipate exceeding projections in that category as well. The next slide captures expenditures for the current fiscal year. Right now, we're at 80% spent of the projected expenditures for FY24. We have trended higher than originally anticipated in compensation areas, mostly as a byproduct of an overwhelmingly successful football season. Other expenditure categories have trended as anticipated. Additionally, after collaborating with many campus stakeholders, we also project benefiting from the newly implemented Board of Governors regulation related to out-of-state student athlete fee waivers, and also by identifying scholarship buy-down for specific majors. We'll continue to be diligent in monitoring our expenditures for the remainder of the year and be strategic in developing ways to reduce spending. On January 27, 2024, it was announced that James Colzie III had been selected as our 19th full-time head football coach. Coach Colzie has a career that spans 2 decades and has spent.
She needs to go ahead and take care of the budget
Yes.
first.
Okay.
Separate action items.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, VP AD Sykes. And as a follow-up, during our last board meeting, there was a request to provide a snapshot, a one-page snapshot. And so that is what was just presented. And there were some additional documents that were shared as it relates to historical items. I do see Trustee Lawson's hand. You're
Yeah,
recognized.
just a couple quick ones. The first one is leave payouts, whether they be for Coach Simmons or for the gentleman that just recently left to go to Murray State. Are those expenses, and the gentleman that left to go be the recruiter with Dion, are those expenses captured in here for potential leave payout expenses?
So they are captured as far as projections, and so our office worked with the budget office, controller's office, and we projected on the high end where the leave payout would be if every single person on that staff transitioned out. And that is where we get the number 246,242. We know everyone's not transitioning out because we have retained the head coach from our staff, and he is working hard to retain as many coaches as possible. So we are hoping not to meet the projection, but the projection trends along with historically having a full turnover when there's a change in head coaching.
So the 200,000+ would cover if everyone left, or it covers the key positions that we know have left?
That would cover if everyone left.
At their current salaries, that would be enough. Okay. And then the second question is, just as we, as we look at this, and I know, it's a little tough sometimes to manage, but there always tend to be lingering expenses that come post football season from a vendor for some reason, and it's happened to us quite a few times. Are we fairly confident that as we've updated the procurement processes, that we don't have any lingering or Johnny come late invoices sizable to come in? I mean, small ones are easier to deal with, obviously, but sizable invoices that may creep up.
Right, so we have done extensive education with cross-campus stakeholders and kind of reiterate this every time we have a staff meeting on making sure that we are not committing ourselves to anything without going through the proper procurement process. I don't know that that completely eliminates, but there have been things that I have put in place to hold people accountable for committing to things outside when they go outside of the process. For example, we've had coaches commit to things outside of the process, and we have recovered those funds through their foundation account and then secured them to move to support the operating expenses since they weren't accounted for appropriately. So we are doing things within the department to try to deter that from happening moving forward.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Lawson. I see your hand, Trustee Gibbons.
Chair, thank you. Mine are more centered around comments. When I read these budget numbers and I start to look at them, more and more, I would like to kind of request that the president and staff give us I'd like to do just a full overview of the athletics budget because it seems like when Madam AD took over, we weren't operating in a deficit. And then as I keep going through these numbers, it looks like there's a structural deficit within the athletics department that we continue to overlook, as opposed to taking the time and fixing the real issue. To me, after doing a deep dive, because I've spent a lot of time on some of this stuff that I keep hearing, this negative language and some other stuff about, contracts are ambiguous and we don't know what this means, and I'm not gonna get into particular football games and that kind of stuff, but all I'm gonna say is, as I read more and more into this, it just seems like we don't have a hold on the athletics budget. We keep getting snapshots in time instead of a full overview of what this budget looks like. If there's a structural deficit, then we need to deal with the structural deficit up front, or we're going to continue to run into the negative. And then now I've been getting phone calls about us taking a vote at the foundation and employees and the president taking a vote to get money to the athletic department, which is a total violation of the law.
What law, Trustee Gibbons, so that
Well, if you, Dr. Robinson, if you're an ex officio member, you can't vote. And if you have any employees that are on a foundation board, they have to call out and be on their own time. They can't be on the clock. The budget director can't vote on something and then be over the money when it comes into the budget. That's a total, that's a violation of Florida law. So we got to be very careful that we follow the rules and not just try to fix stuff, and we're making it worse and worse and worse and worse rather than doing just following procedures. So I'd like to see the foundation bylaws to see who's actually on the board and who's a voting member, because this is starting to get worse and worse and worse. And I'm not going to sit here as a fiduciary and just rubber stamp budgets and other things when I don't have a full picture. Now, Trustee Washington asked for, hold on, let me finish. Trustee Washington asked for the budget. Lawson asked for the entire budget. And we keep getting these snapshots. So, Madam Chair, Mr. President, I'm asking formally that we go through the entire budget from beginning to end so that we can understand what's going on with the budget. And if there's a structural deficit, if there's other things that are wrong, that we can fix that up front, as opposed to trying to mend this every year and going to the bog trying to present a budget that's limping every year. It's not fair to the university. It's not fair to you all, but it's definitely not fair to us to be having to vote on it.
So, Madam Chair, could I comment first?
Please go ahead, President Robinson.
Let it go to the audit, Mr. Malcheski, regarding the inappropriateness of members voting on the Foundation Board of Directors board. So, Mr. Trustee, this is the format that we have used for several years, that has also been accepted by the Board of Governors. We haven't changed anything here. We have not tried to hide anything. I would be more than happy if this version of FAMU Board of Trustees as a board has a different format that you would like for us to report on. And then we will sit down and explore that and report according to that. This is the mechanism we've always used to make sure that we didn't leave anything out with regards to the integrity of the team around the table. The reason we did this is to make sure that everybody was on the same page when it came to what this budget looked like each and every year. So if the board has another idea about what should be reported, then we'll be more than happy to accommodate that. I will yield now to Mr. Malcheski regarding the inappropriateness of members voting.
Mr. President, just really quick, if that's the case, if that's the system that we've utilized, then I'd like for the general counsel at the BOG to tell me that it was okay for ex officio members and staff members who will be providing oversight for some of the funding to be voting members on the foundation board. Mr. Malcheski can say whatever he'd like. I'm fine with that. But I'm requesting that the BOG general counsels give us something in writing that says that that is okay.
So this morning, this issue was raised to me, and I reviewed the bylaws of the FAMU Foundation. And it identifies as ex officio members for university employees, the president, the CFO, Carmen Cummings, and a faculty member. According to the bylaws, all ex officio members are voting members of the foundation's board and allowed to vote on business that comes before the board. I did further research to determine if that structure or construct is common. It is the same structure at the University of Florida and Florida State University. I have not received information from the other state university boards yet, but have requested it. In doing additional research, it is very common for employees of a university to serve on the foundation board. and it's more common than not that they serve as voting members in that capacity. So I hope you find that information helpful. The members of the board and the bylaws are readily available on the foundation's website.
I appreciate that. I'm requesting that the Board of Governors, General Counsel's Office, complies that, looks at it as it relates to state rules and regulations of conflict and give us a render.
So we will make that request, Trustee Gibbons, and provide you the response as soon as we get it. So I'm gonna ask Joe, my trustee, to reach out to his counterpart there as the Board of Governors to ask for the opinion on this matter.
Thank you so much for that reply. Trustee Klatt, you're recognized. You're muted.
Chair Harper, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you. Go ahead.
Just wanted to make a couple of comments. And upon joining the board, because of the stipulations that are placed against this board and all state boards in the state of Florida, I would like to say that there was a lot of reading material that I had to cipher through in order to help better understand some of the questions that I would ask during the meeting. I would also say that VP Brown, who is our CFO, has a handle on the majority of the numbers in all of the different departments. And I would like to see President Robinson direct more of us, the Board of Trustee members, to the individual meetings with the CFO and others to make sure that the Board of Trustee member, including myself, when we have questions that could lead to legality issues, that we make sure that we cover our bases with the department heads, with the chief financial officer, and with our general counsel before we make comments that cannot be retracted in public. So President Robinson, I was just asked that you please reach out to particularly the 5 trustees that have just come on. And I would also like to see a process in place for when we have new trustees cycle on, because it's important to both the trustee and the university for them to have a full understanding of the parameters that we have, because it's not clearly defined when we come on the board. So I think with this, and if we are able to have a sustaining process of that for the Board of Trustee members, I think that would be very beneficial to all of us. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Klatt. And just as a reminder, especially for some of our newer trustees, prior to every board meeting, the administrators make themselves available for briefings, where as trustees, we can ask any and all detailed questions offline in one-on-one settings and go to any level of detail that we are really looking for. That also helps us streamline our meetings because a lot of questions oftentimes can be answered prior to in those briefings. And it's also, particularly when I was a newer board member, it's a great way to get up to speed because there is quite a lot to learn in thinking about this institution. So thank you for that comment, Trustee Klatt. Trustee Washington, you're recognized.
Thank you very much, Trustee Harper. And I would like to thank President Robinson and the staff for taking time to go through this, do a deeper dive on this athletic budget with me. I do appreciate and Linda for sending out the analysis of the last several years. I would encourage us as we think through, to Trustee Gibbons' point around what our athletic budget looks like comprehensively, to find a way to report our year-over-year budget to actuals in a format that actually allows for trend analysis. while I appreciate getting each year, the categories are not always the same. And so I would like a reporting structure. Again, I think it's helpful for us to better understand sort of how we've been trending in some of these categories. My main concern was around the operating expenses for this year, which look like they're trending a little bit higher or significantly higher than what we budgeted for this year. And so I obviously had conversations with the staff and went through and looked at our prior year budget to actual on the operating expenses. And it seems as if the last, we did have some years in the more recent past, in the further past, 16, 17, 17, 18, 18, 19, where the operating expenditures came in much higher than budgeted, probably due to our own budget constraints. Our last 4 years have been within budget. And so I would just encourage us, again, when we look at these things, the trend analysis matters and trying to figure out how we can best tell the story around what's going on in our athletic budget.
Madam Chair, thank you, Trustee Washington, and we invite any member of the board, of course, on a one-on-one basis. We can talk as long and go as deep as you would like, and I just want to make sure everyone on the board knows that we extend that opportunity to all of you. So all you need to do is ask. We'll make ourselves available. I just want to make sure, though, that you understand that the people who are sitting around this table in this university environment in general are people who are doing their best to do things the right way. We have committed ourselves to a culture of accountability. We are not perfect, and if we discover that we are doing something incorrectly, we want to be the first to know so that we can correct it as soon as possible. So we will take under consideration this advice regarding how you might want to look at this budget differently. And I think that will be a slight deviation, as Trustee former Chair Lawson can say that we spent quite a bit of time getting to this format, but we're more than welcome to think about another way to make sure that we're operating knowing where we've been and where we're planning on going each and every year. So we have managed in each of the years and projected this year and the last for 4 years, Joe, to wind up in the black. And not that we budgeted everything in the categories that we said or spent in those categories or received revenue in those categories, but I commend you, the board, and the members of this team for figuring out a way within the rules of getting us into the black each of the last 4 or 5 years. And we're going to continue to do that. I would love to have this conversation more extensively with you, Trustee Gibbons, Trustee Washington, to see exactly what it is, how it is we'd like this portrayed in the future.
And in the budget finance, I was just gonna say in the budget finance and facilities reports, oftentimes there is a look back of versus year ago. So I think that would be a good build for the athletics budget so that we can understand not only the trend analysis year over year, but where we were as it relates to actuals versus a year ago. Go ahead, Trustee Washington.
Sorry, thank you, Trustee Harper. Just as a clarifying, I'm not arguing to present it any other way. I just would like a compilation. So, as we look at the categories each year, to just not have them as separate snapshots, to have all of the revenue description in one, and then as it pertains to the last 5 years.
Okay, thank you. We
And
know
just-
that
Go ahead.
it's 1 year in that cycle where it won't be meaningful, of course, and that was 2020. But we'll do our best to go back as far as we can. I think the disruptions you saw in 17 and particularly 18 is when we went to a new level with the coach's salary. And there were some other things happening as well, but that was one that took us out of what we had actually budgeted for that particular year. So, but anyway, we'll do what this board wants to try to be as transparent as we can.
Thank you so much. Trustee Brown, you're recognized.
Hello. Thank you so much for the report. I had two quick questions. I don't know if I may have missed it because of the labeling. Do we know what the internal fundraising was this year, from within athletics?
I don't have that number available, but I can, work with the foundation and get those numbers and report back.
Okay, definitely. Thank you. And then also, I didn't know if it may be too much, but I think in order to really digest the information, having a breakdown of some sort, especially for some of those, for some of the larger items, it would be helpful to see some of those expenses, especially for the Orange Blossom Classic. That was something that I was interested in kind of reviewing. But then, just perspective from looking at it on here, when I'm looking at some of the categories, for example, just some of them that have the numbers that are fairly on the lower side, like the investing in champions at 129,000. I think in the reporting, just to prevent some of the questions, maybe if there were some notes that, could be added, because from seeing it, sometimes it's a little hard to understand like what the nuances may be with each line item. So if there's an opportunity, maybe where could provide some notes, it may make it a little easier to understand why some of those numbers are a lot different from actuals and collective. Thanks.
Madam Chair, if I could also
Go ahead.
like the board, I know we're having the weekly, monthly meetings on this budget, and we've been privileged, well, any board member or member can join those meetings, right? We would notice them accordingly, if more than one board member doesn't attend, typically, during the tenure of Chair Lawson and just recently with Chair Hopper, that's just been the chair. I think we can notice those, as we know what the schedule is going to be. So the other board members who want to join will be welcome to do so without violating the public meetings law in the state of Florida. So we can do that and make that available, and then we spend about an hour or so in those meetings trying to go into detail, answering the kinds of questions Trustee Brown is representing. The other option, as I just pointed out with Trustee Washington, she actually came here, and I think we spent a couple hours or so with her going through, elements of the budget on an item by item basis, and we can do that with you as well. But, that will require a little bit of advance notice, so we can work that into the staff schedule, because it takes a team to go through this, and it's Murray, Brown, A.D. Sykes, Joe Manachevsky, Michael Smith, and so many more who sit around the table to discuss this. Traditionally with the chair, who is certainly welcome to fill this out to other members of the board.
Absolutely, certainly welcome that. Thank you for those comments and replies, President Robinson. I do want to commend the staff on not only identifying, but leveraging the BOG regulation as it relates to out-of-state waivers and getting to a place where our budget is balanced for this year. Really, really important as we think about the debt repayment and pursuing options that can potentially relieve us in the future of that debt repayment. So are there any additional questions on this topic? We do have one more action item. We only have 15 minutes left in our agenda. I assume the hands that are raised are from prior to. Okay, Trustee Lawson, you're recognized.
It was a prior hand, I'm sorry.
Okay. All right, well, thank you so much, VP A.D. Sykes, for that update on the athletics budget. The last item on our agenda is the approval for the head football coach's contract, and we are certainly excited to welcome our new head coach, James Colzie. VP Sykes will highlight the contract provisions. At this time, you're recognized.
So on January 27, 2024, it was announced that James Colzie III has been selected as our 19th full-time head football coach. Coach Colzie has a coaching career that spans 2 decades and has spent the last 2 seasons on the FAMU football staff, serving as the assistant head coach and cornerbacks coach. He was a part of the Dark Cloud defensive staff that ranked in the top 25 in 6 defensive statistical categories in the 2023 season. Immediately prior to joining FAMU, Coach Colzie served as the head coach at St. Mary's University in Canada. The Florida State alumnus has been a part of multiple national championship teams, including the 1993 National Championship as a student athlete at FSU, a Division II National Championship as an assistant coach at Valdosta State in 2007, and most recently as an assistant coach right here at FAMU, where we just won the first Celebration Bowl championship in school history. This multi-year contract was sent to you for your review, and I'm hopeful for an approval of Coach Colzie's contract as presented, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions at this time? Trustee Washington, you're recognized.
Good afternoon and thank you, and excited about this contract. I do have a couple of questions about the terms. Just want to clarify in light of the budget conversation and some of the conversations that we've had. The contract outlines salary steps over 3 years, but then in a later provision, also says that the coach is eligible for additional not performance incentives, for additional merit or cost of living increases. How do those two things, those two provisions interact? Do they supersede? And how do we, that's the question.
How do we pay for them?
That was going to be the next question, but I just want to clarify. He's got salary steps, obviously, but then there's also cost of living. So if one is higher, does he get, like, how would that work?
So the FAMU Foundation Board did approve a 5-year period of time to support the head coach's salary compensation, not specific to the individual, but specific to the position over a period of time that is beyond the terms of the contract and this agreement. I'm confident that what we have committed in the contract as it relates to the increase in salary and any increase due to cost of living will be satisfied within the allocation provided by the foundation board, in addition to what's committed from the athletics budget.
Specifically, if I might, Madam Chair.
Please go ahead.
The Foundation Board of Directors approved $100,000 above the base salary that we can offer, and then $34,000, I believe, for the friends. And so, as A.D. Sykes said, that more than adequately covers the step increase in the coach's proposed salary.
Thank you. So it's my understanding that the foundation will cover both the step and the cost of living increases if they happen in the same year?
It's in that $134.
Okay. And then one more question, if I might. The performance incentives, obviously there are several incentives outlined for performance for the classic playoff games, et cetera. Similar question, how do we budget for that? And then does that also include the team, the assistant coaches, other individuals, or is that just the coaches' bonuses?
Thank you. The bonuses outlined in the head coach's contract is specific to the head coach. There's been no commitment of bonuses to any assistant coaches through this contract or through any individual contracts with other members of the coaching staff. The way we'll be paying out bonuses will be, for example, the Celebration Bowl. We only pay out that bonus if we participate, and therefore we would use the money received from participation in the Celebration Bowl to pay out that bonus. We will use funds from the Florida Classic to pay out the bonus for the Florida Classic win. And then we have an academic bonus, which we would support through the Rattler Athletics.
Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Washington. Are there other questions from trustees? Trustee Lawson, you're recognized, followed by Trustee White.
Thank you. Thank you. Just a couple of questions and a comment. So I'm just reflecting on what we learned from dealing with Coach Simmons, and this is going to fly directly in the face of the current budget discussions, but there's not a retention clause in here, meaning every year the coach stays, there's something over and above the salary increase. I noticed that was in the athletic director's contract, but not here. So clearly money is an issue. So maybe that's the rationale. And then the other thing that I noticed, and maybe I missed it when I read through this quickly, there's no buyout clause, because I think we've moved to really an elite level of college football now in our classification, which means our people are going to be sought after. And one of the ways of backfilling some of the challenges in our budget, one small way is, if our coaches poach, that other institution has to compensate us for that. So that was one thing that struck me that I just love a perspective on. And then my last comment, which I don't want you guys to answer, but I just want to put it on the table because your answer, could impact how we move forward. But in my opinion, we've not addressed the salary compression issue with the other coaches, which will continue, I think, to manifest itself. So I just throw that out for food for thought. Please don't answer it because, whatever we say will be held to. But I do think we should continue to think that one through, because that was one of the issues that Coach Simmons brought to the table that through all these negotiations, I just don't think we've addressed.
Thank you for those comments, Trustee Lawson. I do think there is a clause about clause in there. What?
There is a clause in there for if he was to leave and,
Page 10.
Yes.
Page 10.
Yes, there's an extensive regimen of termination by the coach without cause in section B, paragraph 3.
The buyout provision, was consistent with the amendment in our last head coach's, contract. The buyout provision of $100,000 should he take another head coaching position at another institution or, professional football, organization within the first year. And then after, year 2, it's been reduced to $50,000, which was consistent with the previous contract. There was no retention bonus, indicated in the coach's contract, which is consistent with, the language and head coach's contracts with the language that's been, provided and approved by the Office of General Counsel.
Yeah, yes, and it is consistent, but all I'm saying is, are we leveraging the lessons we just learned? Because our coaches, hopefully we continue to, play at the level we're playing at now, are going to continue to be hot items in the coaching circles, which means there's a potential for them to get poached maybe quicker than normal if we go back to the Celebration Bowl, if we, do something that spectacular back to back. So I just want to be thinking forward and leveraging the things we learned from dealing with Coach Simmons into these contracts, and not, just because we've done it before, do it again.
Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Lawson. We have about 5 minutes left. Trustee White, I see your hand. You're recognized.
Thank you, Chair Harper. So my question is more on, as it pertains to the foundation and the funds that they have. I know we're putting a lot of pressure on the foundation, whether it's different employees who are getting paid in excess of $250 and some other things. The challenge that I have sometimes, and I do know that, we're able to speak with VP Brown. I recently had a conversation with her and the team about some other items. So I'm thankful for that opportunity. But I think the challenge sometimes becomes there are so many moving parts that you can't really make a decision. I really see like what's truly going on. Even from the transfer from the foundation, it's like, well, how is the foundation's financials right now? Well, what budget was that moved from? Well, how do they have a going concern issue right now? Like, what's their operational budget look like? Because if we're going to continue to make these different decisions in a silo, while also, the funds are over here, it just makes it a lot more challenging. So for the next board meeting, I definitely would love to have a more comprehensive view of when we are making these decisions and we are approving them, whether it's athletics or other areas that we're pulling from the foundation, really understanding where the foundation's financials are at, and also being able to understand, how these different items are being paid. Thank you.
Chair, if I might, I know you're.
Please.
comment, but I feel compelled to comment. So ultimately, trustee White, this board approves the foundation board of directors budget. And it just so happens that the 134,000, whatever that number is, was budgeted. And what the foundation board did at the last meeting was take out the language that said that was specifically for Willis Simmons contract. So it was built into their budget. Some of the other things that were approved at that meeting will have to go into the budget for consideration for next year, right? But 134 was already in the current budget. And so we'll make sure though that we'll keep you abreast as they develop their budgets, and because ultimately we'll bring those back to you for each one of those organizations, each one of those, the foundation, the boosters, and the National Alumni Association. We have to bring those budgets to you for your approval, and every time we do that, the leaders of those organizations will come and present those budgets to you with as much detail as you would like. Excuse me.
Thank you for that, President Robinson. We do have less than 2 minutes left. I know several of our trustees have a hard stop at 2 o'clock. I do see your hand, Dr. Friday Stroud. Is it germane to the conversation and necessary, or can we call for, is it necessary?
Well, it is only because I need to correct something my boss just said. That is,
You don't need to say it. Go ahead.
Dr. Robinson stated that there will be something else that will come before you all that the board, foundation board voted on for next year's budget. But in fact, it will actually be coming to you in the March board meeting, where they are requesting to modify this current year's budget with the some additional dollars that they have in contingency. So we are working 24-25 budget for the foundation board, but that won't come to you all until June. But at the March meeting, there will be a request that will come before you all to modify their current 23-24 budget. So sorry, Dr. Robinson, I just needed to correct you.
That's why we pay the big bucks. Anyway, I appreciate it.
Thank you. So at this time, I will ask for a motion for approval of the contract for the head football coach.
So move.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been properly moved and seconded to approve the head football coach's contract. I don't see any unreadiness. All those in favor, please show by the sign of aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, like sign. The motion carries. Thank you so much for today's meeting. If there's no additional business to come before the board, I will call this meeting adjourned at 4:06. Thank you so much and have a good afternoon.
Bye, everyone.